Hi, this is Fabrice Nordmann. So today we're just going to have a little tour about this new feature of FileMaker 2023 called Layout Calculations. So first, a little bit of history. Layout calculations is not entirely new in the FileMaker universe. In fact, there's a very long history of layout calculation engine. First, as far as I can remember, is FileMaker 2. There was already merge fields, and I wonder if it's not even older than that. So you could already use the insert menu and place a new merge field, like here, insert merge field, and then you could call a field from the database that would be rendered on the layout. And a tip to know is that the formatting was coming from the first character here. So this is how this is displayed in red. So the data comes from the field here, hello world, and it's formatted red as the first character tells it to. Then, if I'm correct, in FileMaker 5, you could use the same mechanism in the button labels. So merge button labels. That was a new progress of the layout calculation engine. Then in FileMaker 7 came the script parameters. They are not exactly calculated at the layout level because you need to have a script being called for them to evaluate. But still, depending on the context of the layout, these would be calculated. In FileMaker 8 came the tooltips. The tooltips that are evaluated and displayed when you hover an object. In FileMaker 8.5 came a revolution, which was the web viewers. You could calculate the URL, and of course you could do some calculations such as declare variables and so on with the first real instance of the layout level calculation. So from that point, just by placing an object on the layout, you could trigger a calculation before all other instances were or not really calculations, such as merge fields, or the user had to do something like hover or click before a calculation was evaluated. With the web viewers, this is the first time that just by displaying an object was already evaluating a calculation. Very powerful. And FileMaker 9 came conditional formatting as well as the data support for web viewers. A very important improvement. So this content is directly calculated in the web viewer. It's not calling an external URL. FileMaker 10 came the merge variables. So they work a little bit like merge field, but they're able to display a variable with one limitation, which is it cannot display repetitions of a repeating variable, as opposed to merge fields who are able to do that. FileMaker 11 came the chart engine. FileMaker 13, a big leap with calculated tab panels like these. And the hide object 1, very important calculation implementation, because this is evaluated even before the object is rendered. So it can be very, very useful. In FileMaker 14, 2 new items came in, like placeholder text and the calculation of the labels of the button bars. And then, except if I'm wrong and I forgot something, it might happen, but I think there was no new improvement on the layout calculation engine until today,
where FileMaker 2023.2
is released. And then come the layout calculations. So let's take immediately a quick look into that new feature. So layout calculation is a new item that you can insert from the insert menu here in the layout mode, where you already had merge field and merge variable. You can now add a new object, is layout calculation. And if you do that, FileMaker will open a calculation window where you can just do that, for instance. So I'm getting a field and I will append space, then current time. And then FileMaker will place this new object, which is really basically a text object, just like we are used to. And it looks very much like a merge field object. In fact, it is. So this is a subclass of the classic text object. So first, let's look at what it returns. I'm just going to browser mode, and then it does just exactly what I asked it. So it takes the first repetition of that field and appends the current time, and I can refresh the window, and the time is refreshed. This is, as I said, it's just a text object, which means you can, of course, add some fixed text, some like hard-coded text, let's say. And I'll go back to browser mode, and you see with the same object I can have two different contents. So there's nothing really new. It's still a text object, but to do that, to implement the layout calculation, Claris did something very clever. It was actually really needed, but for the first time you can have a text object which is resized to smaller size than its content. And this is true for all text objects as of this version. So you can have smaller objects than their content. Very important. Of course, if you double click, then the object resizes to its content, like it has always done. But now you can resize it as smaller as its own content. The other things you need to know is that you can edit this calculation. You can, of course, type them manually, like just by typing this. And if I type this character, which is just Option F on a Mac and Alt 159 on Windows, and then you can start with a colon, and then you can start typing your calculation. So let's say get current time, and then end the calculation by just doing that, and then go back to browse mode, and here it works. So of course it's just a text object. You can edit it as you've always done. You can also format it just as the merge fields and merge variables. Let's select a color here, and it works. So it's basically just like a text object. What FileMaker did, and which is nice, is that you can right click. So if you place the caret in one of these calculations, you can just right click and edit layout calculation, and FileMaker will guess, and we know in which one was the caret was, and open that calculation in the calculation dialog. So this is very nice, very easy to use. So in terms of data, you've got to be aware that these layout calculations support the data formatting here, but I've been running into issues when you have multiple calculations in the same object. So for instance, here we have a first calculation returning a string because there's a concatenation operator, then a second calculation that is returning a time. So now if I go to the time formatting and just ask for minutes and seconds and go back to browse mode, you will see that this is, for this time it's applied. You can see minutes and seconds as you would expect, because this calculation is indeed returning a time. Sometimes you run into a situation where this is just not working, while it's always working when you have a single layout calculation in the object. Another thing in terms of data, which is important to know, is that as opposed to merge variables that was unable to get the repetition of a variable, so let's say var 3, like that. And as opposed to that, if I do a calculation like this, getting a repetition of a variable, this is going to work. So this is a nice improvement. So I have here in my data viewer, I am setting a variable to something anywhere, hello. This is repetition 3 of the variable, and as you can see, the merge variable cannot get it, while the calculation can. So the calculation gets the repetition of the variable, not the merge variable. This is another improvement of this new feature. I hope you will enjoy this new feature. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.